I am feeling so grounded, grateful, open, and curious to welcome my dear brother, Ke'oni, into the Forward Movement podcast today. I have been in the sphere of this human for a few years now and have received the wisdom and the guidance, along with the sacred fern medicine as well, that Ke'oni offers to the collective. And the perspective of life through my own eyes has shifted through the guidance and the love and the playful curiosity that this beautiful brother offers to myself and all who are open to receiving. So I am so excited to introduce to you Ke'oni. And Ke'oni, I would love for you to open up and introduce yourself to the listeners here within the Forward Movement podcast.
Hello. Thank you for this invitation and this playful dance that you and I get to take with this audience as well. Yeah, I'm, Ke'oni Hanalei, and I am so blessed because I was raised or hanai or formally adopted by my grandmother, who was a well-known makaula or mystic on the island of Maui. And so a lot of the ike or the knowledge that I host and that I share is directly from my lineage. And this lineage spans 1017 generations. So it's a very long line. And in all these generations, there are bits and pieces of ike, of knowledge that I have absorbed and remembered. And my body of work is simply me just sharing the archaic Hawaiian and Mu knowledge. And so, my my connection to my lineage is really that which inspires me to share. However, I also love to make the point that a lot of what I share and all of that I share is of me as well. It's a consent that I have with my own beliefs and my own ideals that is complemented by my lineage.
Mhm. Taking a moment to integrate what you just shared, Ke'oni, and also the 1,000 plus years within your lineage that has transferred through your vessel, your consciousness, and your human form as we speak. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Opening up this conversation as well with a question: how has the act of forward movement transformed your life?
Uh, yeah. Well, first, there is acknowledgement that this is a consciousness-based in movement. And I feel like the disruptions in my life were my unwillingness to move forward. There's something that I love to share about movement, and that is a word called affluence. And many people, I think today, when they translate this word affluence, perhaps it has a lot to do with money or wealth. But the true definition of affluence means to be in flow. And my life changed rapidly when I was able to just relax into my own trajectory, into my own movement, and allow myself to be carried, which meant that I took myself out of like the effort and the efforting that was so incredibly exhausting for me. And I see this play out in the collective as well, is that there's just a lot of exhaust. And one of the consequences of exhaust is revolt. And so for me to relax back into my affluence really allowed the world to become friendly. Because I remember a time when in the efforting, the world just seemed to be so cruel and so unforgiving and so malicious. But the moment that I allowed myself to relax, a different world appeared before me, a friendly world, an approachable world, a world that's really willing to negotiate. And so applying ourselves to be in equal measure with the voltage of this world has been life-changing. And that word voltage is really important for me and my medicine and my body of work because I work with fern medicine and pu'a ehu ehu. This is one of the medicines that was gifted to me and by my kupuna, my elders, my grandmother. Her name is Kawiki Onalani. But it's also a deep knowing that I have of myself. about fern medicine, and it's all about human emotions. And the specific thing about human emotions that's so unique in correlation to voltage is that this is an electrical experience that we're all having. And the greatest impetus of our electrical experience as humans is our emotions. And so part of my forward movement, if you will, and my affluence has been my reorienting into my emotional experience.
Oh, okay, voltage. What an igniting word, Ke'oni. The moment you said that, there was literally a voltage throughout my body, and how you have brought in this expression of voltage in union with forward movement is so beautiful as well, too. How the emotions dance within all of the movement that is of the human. I would love to backtrack to what you originally shared when I asked you this question of how there was this force or this stickiness of going forward. There was a control almost of the surrounding of your life, and that was stopping the forward movement. And then once you allowed to flow, then you notice a different world in front of you. I'm so curious, what was the change from one to the other? What was it a perspective shift, or how, because I find myself in that dance right now, brother. I found myself in the dance of, I know I'm supposed to flow. I know I'm here to really have faith and be in this movement of the human. But then so often I find myself all of a sudden in a world, once again, of grasping, controlling. So, for my own curiosity, and I'm sure many other listeners as well, what was that for you? How did that transition
Mm,
come forward?
yeah. Gosh, and one of the things, one of the brilliant things about our reality, which can also be a detriment to us, is that there's a lot of data. There's a lot of data. And so we all are responsible for organizing this data, which can cause a kind of saturation, which can also slow us down. And then perhaps we come into the world of mimicry because now we're playing out other people's data, other people's beliefs, other people's ideas. And so the way that I reoriented myself from that shattering, and we can even feel that as a shattering when there's so much data and there's so many parts we can play, we become shattered ourselves. So what I did is I allowed myself to be a kind of convergence. And the way that I converged is to make the first proclamation, which is that I belong. I belong. And that I affirm my own belonging. My belonging has already been determined. There, I'm no longer reaching to be validated in that by playing out all these different parts to get the validation from the exterior conditions. I became a convergence and I determined that I already belong. I belong. I like to call this, Renee, the great pivot. And in a world where we're just bombarded with data, the great pivot is so incredibly important because it can reorient us into our true nature. Once I'm reoriented into my true nature, then I can come back to the world and start to make the contributions that are most honest to who and what I am, no longer having to play the parts that usually always end up in exhaust. And then, the exhaust leads to all the other different things, such as resentment, bitterness, isolation, and it just goes on and on.
Relating so deeply, so deeply. And now, where you are in this moment, how do you find this presence of you belonging where you are, while still noticing and witnessing the overflowing of data that is still present? How do you find yourself moving through without soaking in and changing?
Yeah, good question. Because it's always important to remain informed, because like in my own work and my own experience, and when I share this with others, I'm not promoting escape. I'm not promoting let's just isolate ourselves in the favor of our own interests and our own beliefs. No, we get to approach the world and make contributions and interact and engage. And so it's always good to be informed. However, the key is as I approach the world, because I've affirmed I belong, I approach the world as a negotiator. I'm negotiating. This means that nothing is overpowering me, nor am I in the favor of overpowering anything else. I'm meeting things in equal measure. It's the sacred homeostasis. This is our natural state, is homeostasis. And so reaffirming and reorienting oneself into homeostasis is really the most even diplomatic way to negotiate with a world of such variety and contrast. In my own affirmation of my skill of negotiation, this is how, like I was sharing earlier, the world has become friendly once again because I don't feel overpowered by it. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Is it inconvenient? Sure. Are there horrors out there? There is, but there's also a lot of beauty and joy and all the other things. I'm willing to negotiate with it. And the more and more that I relax into that movement of negotiation, the more and more that the world itself becomes more friendly and meets me in that equal measure. I want to share it like this, Renee. I have a software of the three S's, and this is really how I like organize myself. Okay. Initially, of course, but this is how I organize myself throughout the day. I affirm what S I am in favor of. Okay. And I'll explain what the three S's are. There's two extreme S's. All right. And then there's this middle ground. There's this neutralizer S. At any given moment, we are all in the favor of one of these S's. Now, let's review one of the extreme S's. One of the extreme S's is subordination. And many of us, and I'll speak for myself, I found myself in subordination. It's not malicious. It was deemed a necessity in order for me to just exist. And that's the story of many brothers and sisters. Like, I must be submissive, I must be subordinate in order to just exist so that my life is not in imminent danger. And so that may be the interest and the favor throughout the day, is that we're just subordinate, 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 subordinate. This does not make you less than. Like I said, this may be a necessity, a perceived necessity of this is how I can exist. This is how I can survive. Now, the other extreme S is superiority. And once again, it's not malicious. Many of us perceive that in order for us to just exist in this world and to survive, we must be superior. And so we become in the favor of superiority throughout the day. Now, that middle S, it's not about rejecting the two extreme S's. That's unrealistic. It's about merging them together. Nothing is to be abandoned. We become responsible for everything to which we participate in, and most certainly everything to which we've created. We must become responsible for that. So we merge the two extreme S's to that neutralizer, and that's called sufficiency. Sufficiency. And so throughout the day, can I reorient myself in sufficiency, meaning I'm not in the interest of being overpowered. However, I'm also not in the interest of overpowering. I'm here to negotiate, and negotiation is accomplished in sufficiency.
Ooh, okay. So I'm curious your perspective and take on the reorientation of sufficiency in union with utilizing the life force energy of the human to the most capacity potential possible for each day. Is there a relation with this, do you believe?
Oh, most certainly. And if I may speak on behalf of that sufficiency, it's also sacred confidence. It's sacred confidence to where there's not that favor of self-sabotage that so many of us find ourselves in. And we're certainly not in arrogance. Arrogance is insecurity. And so that sufficiency also builds us the confidence that we're not just conducting ourselves in this world out of a need to, that I need to do this. We're willingly participating with this world, which means when we offer our kiakahi, as we say in the language, or our purpose, our gifts, our medicine, there's no strings attached. We're here to make contributions.
As I hear you speak, so much is being igniting within so many expressions, to be honest, Ke'oni, I don't fully understand with the mental, although since the moment that I came in union with you, the way in which, in the language of the ancient Hawaiian tongue, that you express something within is like tick, 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 within, and there's a simplicity with this. Even though when the mind tries to tell you like too much, the body and the heart is like, oh, we know that we land in the center point, and that I'm even reflecting right now of the genocide taking place in Gaza. And at one point, I was blinders and living in my world and really enjoying everything. I'm like, ooh, and of course, and we all tap into this because I'm so curious to continue the conversation of emotions. But I have an emotional wave. I experience an emotional wave. So I go through my experiences with that. And then recently the blinders came off, and now, as you say, there's so much information, there's so much data coming my way. So I feel like there's a vocal happening, and I got lost in that vocal happening of what's taking place. And then I love I love how the Forward Movement podcast brings on individuals at the time, and I feel today is so sacred with the 222-1222, because the words that you were sharing, Ke'oni, feels very much like a medicine of a reminder of coming back to the center point within the three S's and being very, very clear of what is my contribution even to the self every single day when it comes to sufficiency and energy expression. And I'm wondering, from the rift that just happened through, if there's anything that has come to mind or heart or that you feel called to express from what I just shared.
Oh, yeah. And I'll just speak on my own behalf. The embodiment of that sufficiency is so incredibly important, because if I do not embody that sufficiency, but yet that is the recommendation that I'm making to the exterior conditions, that's actually called gossip. It's called gossip. And so it's reorienting oneself into the authority of who and what they say they are. Now, what does authority mean? Authority means that we need evidence. I need evidence that I'm sufficient. It's not an idealization. It's not a promise. I'm not promising to be sufficient at another time. I'm sufficient right now. And so when the world is so loud right now with tumult, that can really knock us off of our ability to remain in that homeostasis because of the extremes. Now, if that's playing out with extremes, it might encourage me and provoke me to lean into one of the other extremes: superiority, submission, subordination. How can I remain in that sufficiency without being so heavily influenced by the exterior conditions? When I guide people through something called ku'ulike, and it's a mu greeting, an ancient mu greeting. And just for the listeners, the lineage that I have access to, it's Hawaiian, but it predates the Polynesian arrival of Hawaiians. So this would be considered as mu. Many people know it as Lemuria, but that is a lineage that I have access to. But one of the greetings, it's called kulike. And when we go into that greeting, we make contact with the internal masculine and the internal feminine. And there's different things or mantras that we speak within these centers. And when I have a conversation with my internal masculine, one of the things that I'm gifting my masculine is relaxation, is to relax, because the agitation is so high. When agitation is so high, we're going to react. The unfortunate thing about reaction is that it pretty much disqualifies me from quality. It may be effective, reacting may be effective, but it may not have quality. If it doesn't have quality, it doesn't have longevity. And so now I'm just in that perpetual cycle of build, collapse, build, collapse, build, collapse, because I'm not allowing myself to pivot. The world is going to be loud. The world is loud. Every day it's telling me crisis, react, react, but I still get to reorient myself into my own sufficiency so that when I do choose to engage with this world, that to which I contribute is going to have longevity. It's going to have quality. And that's my objective.
So beautiful. So beautiful, Ke'oni. And as an individual who deeply, 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 deeply believes in the future of humanity, deeply, I feel that what you're saying right now is really fuel for humanity to have the longevity. Because if there is this wave of reaction and then going down, reaction going down, humanity as we know it in this current time will not continue, I feel, possibly, who the power of longevity could really be the pillars of where humanity is going in union with Gaia, in union with this planet and the well-being of the planet. And with that being said, I'm so excited because you've recently shared that there is this calendar reform and a buzzing. And I feel like within this, there is a longevity in union. This is why it's coming forward right now and yesterday or the day before, I heard you share that this calendar reform is in relation to Vega. And I would just love to hear what is on your heart and what is coming through you in relation to calendar reform. Yes.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. This is such a big conversation. And I just want to preface by saying I am also in the stages of it just revealing and sharing with me. And so I'm also in an explorative stage with this calendar reform in correlation to Vega, to Lyra. I do want to say this about Lyra because, of course, the qualities of Lyra and Vega will really determine what this calendar is all about. And so I feel like that's the best way to begin is like, okay, what does Lyra, what does Vega represent? What's its quality? And the way that I do this personally is by translating the names. I love etymology. I love etymology. You know, it's one of the ways that our archaic ancestors coded things. And it's interesting you say like the trajectory of the human race right now, because we have a different perception of coding, which is like, because we're an AI and mecha culture, right? And transhumanism is so large. And so is that the trajectory of humanity is transhumanism, which would be a removal of the soul, and that would be consensual, which would be fair for us to evolve into that. But we are at a choice point right now. So Lyra, the Hawaiian word for Lyra, and Lyra and Vega in the language, they both hold the same name, okay? Lyra is the constellation, Vega is the brightest star in that constellation of Lyra. The name in Hawaiian is Ke'oi. Ke'oi. Now, Ke'oi, if we do a ka'avale or we dissect that word and we find the deeper meaning of Ke'oi, it means back to you, return to you. Okay, let's hold that for a moment. Now, the Mu language, which is archaic Hawaiian, pre-Hawaiian language, it's umak. Umak is the word for Lyra and Vega. Now, umak translates as to experience or witness a fulfillment. And so notice how both translations, they're actually carving out a circumnavigation, a completion of an orbit back to you to witness, experience fulfillment. And so Lyra Vega holds a kind of completion medicine for us in whatever that represents. Also, I want to point out something else that's quite interesting is that in the Mu lineages, in the Mu mythology, in the Mu doctrines, the very first star lineage is Draco. And we call Draco Mataroro. That's Lyra's closest neighbor. And so once again, it's returning back to something. It's returning back to its most archaic form. There's a kind of completion that is happening. This calendar that Lyra wants to present to us is a calendar of completions in a way. And so I'm still in my investigation and open to people sharing, like, what does that mean, right?
And the choice point, as you say, we're in this choice point of humanity to go in one direction or to play in the consciousness and the human form of this completion sphere. And I was just so giddy when you shared about Vega as well, too, because, you know, I believe you know of our sister Charmaine holding space, and she read my Akashic records years ago, and how I soul form came from Procyon, and how, or some people may express Procyon, but this feels better than the so we go Procyon. So Procyon, and then there was a situation where I left because there was quarantine, and I went to Vega, and the majority of my soul was experiencing life on Vega. I feel, and it's interesting because Procyon in the physical form, I feel very connected to Procyon, and also the around structures, although the outer form of the soul expression within that I carry underneath the human is Vega. And so when you shared this, Ke'oni, and maybe that's why I'm so stoked about calendar reform, is because there is a connection there of like, oh, back,
Yeah.
or there is a circulation taking place. And I wonder if it's in relation as well to the feminine 13-month calendar too. That's something that came through originally when you shared the calendar reform, and I've been feeling into it. And even the past few years, everybody's so stoked about New Year's, but I celebrate New Year's in March. There's a new birth taking place in March, and it honors this feminine cycle. And I wonder if there's been an underlining knowing of knowledge throughout humanity since we switched the calendar that we experience now, that has been beating a breath of the calendar to come if humanity does choose to go that direction.
Well, thank you for sharing all of this. It does seem like there was a implanted disorientation, a purposeful implanting of a disorientation. I mean, look at the result. We're a culture of war. That's a result, that's a consequence of disorientation. You know, like my kupuna would say, this is not malicious, this is not an error, but we can be misled. There's two primary laws of life. One is feminine and one is masculine. The masculine primary law of life is first do no harm. The feminine primary law of life is consent. And you know how the saying, right, is in plain sight. In plain sight. As long as it's in plain sight, it abides by that primary law. But yet many of us are manipulated, and thus we offer consent. And so ultimately, according to the universe, where we've landed right now, it's fair. It's fair because we have consented. And so reorienting ourselves, and gosh, this word keeps coming up, right, Renee? Reorienting, and like, what is one of the greatest things a calendar does? Is it reorients us. And so what does this calendar of completion represent? And I feel like that's like the loudest thing right now. Like what is that? What is a calendar of completion? What does that look like? What's the behavior of that? The 13 months that you bring up, it's poignant for me because we have a story of a turtle goddess. Her name is Kawila in Hawaiian culture, and she's the goddess of turtles and children. She's a child herself. She's the only child goddess in our pantheon. And the children are the ones who actually create the calendar. And the children create the calendar. There's like so many things why that resonates so much. One, because calendars are designed in innocence, like of course, but they don't have agendas, right? The human beings, like the calendar today is based on commerce, right? But when a child creates a calendar, it's totally based in innocence. But the children in the myth of Kawila, they build the calendar based on the spots on the shell of the sea turtle, the honu, which is 13. And so that would be, according to the children, that would be the proper calendar, would be 13.
I love that you're bringing this up. And because one of the reasons is moments, breaths before you shared, what came through my heart and mind is how, as an educator working with youth for the past 18 years and been deeply in the curiosity of how the current structures are a disservice to the potential of choice for humanity, and how from the depths of my soul, I feel that for a reform of education to take place, there must be a massive breakdown. It's not going to be elegant. It must be shattered. There must be a shattering for it to be rebuilt. And then the calendar merges in with that, because once the educational system shatters, all other structures must shatter. It's all tied, or vice versa. When another one shatters, everything. And even though one may perceive this as really scary, my soul is like, let's do it. Let's get the show on the road. We got things to do, things to create, things to bring to form. And when feeling into the innocence of a child and the children coming in now and the consciousness of which they are already, you see their eyes. Ke'oni, I'm not sure how many young children you have come across in the past year or so, but whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I look in children's eyes, I see wonder, I see awe. They are available for wonder and awe. And conditioned humans, perhaps, of our generation, are so saturated with suspicion, with this fixation on crisis, that our eyes don't reflect wonder and awe anymore. But the children, just as you're sharing, yes, I look into their eyes and it's very, very obvious that they are available. They consent to wonder and awe.
Consent to wonder and awe. Therefore, we as humans are here to consent to wonder and awe, because they are teaching us how to return back to the space that we came here to be, the expression of which we are here to be. And I'm wondering, Ke'oni, do you find that within the sphere of emotions and this beautiful contributions that humans have brought to form on Gaia in the form of emotions, do you feel that there is a union between emotions and the calendar reform?
Good question. You know, I would say the loudest thing about that is that let's also consider that our emotions is really what determines our behavior. It determines our beliefs, our choices. And so I would feel like the calendar would most certainly, something would be in correlation to what is promoting us to go into this reform. And then even feel into, the translations of Lyra and Vega, return to you, like to experience a kind of circumnavigation. It's to experience the full gamut of the human condition, the emotional condition. The great example is this prophet many call Jesus, that Jesus went through a complete circumnavigation of its emotional experience to come to a point of completion. The last word that Jesus said on the crossing is tetelestai. It is accomplished. It is finished.
Mm. And for humans to experience the emotions and all the waves without deeming them right or wrong, although to experience the expression of the emotion itself in all waves. And I remember you speaking about, Ke'oni, of how within the emotions, at least with the fern medicine that you share, with 103 or 101, 103.
100. Yes.
Yeah, okay. And how half of them are feminine, half are masculine, and there's one emotion that is neither. And I'm curious if with the one emotion that is neither, if there is a message within that is here to share the direction of calendar reform, is here to share how to begin the process of calendar reform.
Yeah, so great, Renee. Yet there are 103 ferns that correlate to 103 emotions. This is Puai Ehu Ehu fern medicine. Coded in the spores of the ferns is the uncorrupt codes of these emotional qualities. There are 51 that are energetically feminine. Energetically feminine means noun-based establishment. There are 51 that are energetically masculine, mean verb-based, active. There is one androgynous, and that is the fern Palapalai, and it's the fern of discipline. Of course, we would have this conversation when we talk about calendars because discipline means consistency. Consistency means patterns. A calendar is a pattern, and we are reorienting ourselves into an evolved pattern because the pattern to which we've been navigating for who knows how long, Renee, it's obviously complete.
Yes.
And we must allow it. We must abdicate this calendar and evolve to the new calendar. And I feel like that's one of the messages of Lyra, of Vega. It's saying we must acknowledge the completion. And I love that you're speaking into, when we acknowledge something is completed, there's a lot of dismantling that gets to happen because we must shed a skin. We must shed a skin individually, but collectively as well. We must be aligned with one another. I even love the story. My grandmother used to say that Ki, or Honua Gaia, even in astrology, right, is considered a non-sacred planet. Yeah, it's considered a non-sacred planet. Ki, Gaia, Earth, has said, I would like to be a sacred planet now. I've never asked anything of you before. I've only given, given, given. My one request, I'm ready to be a sacred planet, but everything within me and of me must also choose to be sacred as well. And I feel really deeply, Renee, that human beings are the only ones who have not affirmed that we are sacred. And therefore, we're not an energetic match for everything of this planet to become sacred as well, including the planet itself, which has given us nothing but its love.
Yes, yes, I love this planet. I love this planet. When I came here, I was like, I'm coming. I am coming. And I'll talk to people, be like, I'm so ready to leave this planet, when they have the consciousness of their soul and how they will go to different life forms. And I'm like, no, I'm me and Gaia. And maybe I'm Taurus, I'm Earth sign, and I have this union anyways. But yeah, this information that you share of how this planet is not sacred and how this planet is asking to be sacred and how the human is the barrier between the where we are now and the shift of that vibrational frequency of sacred. And one aspect that I really get overwhelmed with, I really do, is how does the collective begin to lean into conversations such as this with the curiosity of life could be different and we are not in harm because it can be different. We are still safe through the difference.
Mhm. I can only use myself as the example, but it's going to come back to the conversation of belonging. And this has been the pivotal point in my own life where even my perspectives have changed drastically. The world may be conducting itself in the same way, but my perspective of the world has changed drastically in my own affirmation of my own belonging, where I don't need to earn that anymore. I don't need that to be given to me anymore. And thus, I can now negotiate with the evolution itself, where it's not so threatening anymore. And so this is like my big message, Renee, to so many people is just begin to have a conversation about what it means for you to belong. And then some things are going to come in. If your story is like my story, some things are going to come in like, okay, in order for me to belong, I need to be this, this, this. Okay, who says so? Who says so? Right? All the identities that we need to be in order to be noticeable, in order to be valid, all of that. Then I ask the question, who says so? Not me. Not me. That's problematic. So reorienting myself into I get to determine and discern my own belonging. And then from that belonging, then like that fountain, come out and make contributions based on that belonging.
If I may share, my personal journey as of the past few years has really been exploring the sharing and the contribution to humanity while I have not been in the center point of belonging within. And I can feel it, Ke'oni. I can feel this, you know, separatedness that comes within the contribution, even though the contribution comes from the heart. The contribution comes from a dropping in of information funneling through. And also, I so deeply resonate and gratitude, openness, receptivity to the message that you were sharing for the myself and all individuals who tune into this conversation of belonging. Because as the human design goes, I am the energy of a projector, and I really, really relate with this. And it's the life's journey, is it not, to belong and not constantly be seeking recognition from the other. And I love that you're bringing this into the conversation, how you brought this conversation of belonging to the collective as well right now, because it's something I've been playing with for well over a year now, of I don't need to defend myself to anyone. I don't need to show who I am in the way that I think I need to be showing myself. What if I just played and experimented and openly received life through the lens of curiosity? As I do with the children, we're all in a circle, we pick up our binoculars, and then we look through the binoculars through our eyes, and we're gazing at each other, and then we point to the imaginary things in between the circle, and we make us like, that's the wonder. And I myself am learning this. I'm at the beginning of the journey, and my prayer and my intention in this conversation for all beings who are listening is, may they find the courage and the strength within to lean into the question of I belong and what follows after. Yeah,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, yeah. This is life changing when you can begin to negotiate with that inquiry and then come back to that sufficiency of belonging, which means that you reorient yourself into your own sacredness. Here's the great thing about reorienting into sacredness, which is like the capstone of belonging, right? Is the recognition that you are sacred. I am sacred. I want to ask it like this, Renee. That to which you deem sacred, is there any way you can harm it?
No, never.
No. That's
Yeah.
the answer to war and war culture. Is when we can finally identify ourselves first and foremost as sacred. So we're the authority of that sacredness. And then we become available to also acknowledge the sacredness all around us, which is going to pull us away of the interest of harming others. This is going to be a titration. This is going to be a titration, but it begins with the affirmation of one's own belonging. And then we'll slowly begin to see how more and more will come into the interest of their sacredness, the capstone of their belonging. And thus, it will not even be of interest to harm one another again. This is possible.
Yeah. And there's no urgency too. There's a word and the vibration within me of like urgency. We must do now. The time is running out, but there is no urgency, because there is this movement, this life force breath within all of us that is guiding us to the remembering of what you are sharing of I belong. And I find that, at least in the circles that I am within in the world of Instagram, and grateful for that world because that's how we connected, of course. so many words are thrown around, and these words are thrown around without the recognition of the meaning of the word. And therefore, the word is beginning to get tainted. And now these words are being thrown around, and people are now pushing the words away, saying, no, 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 anybody who uses sacred, like that's just a scheme to get more money, or we're using these words. And I do believe, Ke'oni, that there's a majority of individuals who have lost the definition of the meaning of the word. And I'm so grateful for you elevating the heartbeat of each word that you are bringing into the conversation, because to deem oneself sacred is not playing a game to get people on your side. It's simply acknowledging the truth of the expression that we are experiencing.
Oh, like, may we all come back into the responsibility of the words and the spells and the pitch and the timbre of what we're expressing. May they be held in reverence once again. I love the story in Mew. We're telepathic, so we didn't necessarily have spoken language. When we did speak, it was for ceremony. It was for ritual. And feel into the ritual and ceremony today. We're uttering such violence. We're uttering such superficiality. And so reorient back into that safety, or that sacredness, so even the sacredness begins to inform us. Inform me on how to conduct myself throughout the day. We can all do that. You are allowed. I am allowed to tap into my sacredness and say, please inform me. How may I conduct myself today? I call this the free fall. You just free fall into your sacredness. It catches you. It's called affluence. It's going to carry us that trajectory. Speaking of human design, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, I've been waiting to know what your design is, Ke'oni. Yes, brother.
I'm a 1/4 quad split projector. So when you said projector, I'm like, oh yeah, girl.
Oh yeah, yeah, we're in it. We're playing. Of course, I had a feeling because your expression of how you dance and then the duality of the candy, but then the intensity. I'm like, this being's in it, and we're in it with
Yeah,
yeah, things are
yes,
happening.
it's full spectrum.
Yes, 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 yes. Do you have an emotional wave? Are you an emotional authority? Oh no, I'm sorry, you already said it. Never mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful, so beautiful. I feel like I could talk to you for so long. I really could. And I'm so grateful for this conversation. I would love to wrap up this container and ask a question of what is in your life right now that is embracing forward movement?
Mm. I'm going to say my belonging, my sense of, and my affirmation of belonging. That has alleviated my need to jump. And with forward movement, if I feel into like the velocity of forward movement, perhaps I was not aligned because I was so erratic, because I was jumping. And my belonging, and I'll come back to the word, is my convergence. So all the static, all the distractions, everything that promoted my jumping, I now have a home to come back to. That's my belonging. So that forward movement is a lot more friendly for me. I'm in allowance. I'm consenting to it. No longer so suspicious of it. If there's one thing I want to share with this audience and with you, Renee, is that it's good to reaffirm that this world and this consciousness is really friendly. It's really friendly. Allow it to be your friend, your ally. Begin to have conversations with it. Begin to negotiate with it. And thus we take out that separation that we've implanted, which I feel has led to such incredible desperation on this planet. And so relax back into the friendliness of this universe. There's so much play to be experienced when you relax into the friendliness. This is a a playground, not a battleground. Even my kupuna, my elders would say, coming into this reality is like getting the golden ticket. Congratulations. And then many of us are here thinking like this is a burden. Whoa, no, congratulations. Like high five, fist bump. We did it. We're here. Let's enjoy.
Mm. Yes. I'm here to enjoy, I'm here to play, and also be aware of the beingness of coming back to the space. And Ke'oni, I would love for you to share for any beings who are tuning into this conversation, how are they able to stay in touch with you or be in your world of sharing and playing and moving?
Yes, thank you. I have a website that you can browse, and it's called pohala.net, POHALA.net. And there's a lot of information about my body of work. There's also links to potential courses that I'm sharing, ceremonies, online ceremonies, the potential for private sessions, if you will. I would say that a really fun place to locate me is my Instagram because I'm really consistent with sharing the medicine of the ferns. And so I'll share a lot about different emotional qualities and what is channeling through me about what different emotional qualities represent. And it's always fun because it starts so many fun conversations within people. And I love that people, they'll write to me and they'll share like, oh, after I heard your transmission about the fern of courage, Vaikau, that's all I talked about the whole day. And wow, so many people had so much to say about courage. And like, it was just so fun for us to just examine and like, and play with that emotional quality. And so it's a great place to become inspired too in that voltage of the emotional experience. So my Instagram, Pohala_Hawaiian_botanicals. I tried Pohala, it was already taken. So it's that long one.
To play with. Yeah. You get to play with so many letters.
Yes.
Oh, brother, so much love to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to all beings who tune in here in this conversation, may you receive and may you play.